So yeah, let's begin. Are we all ready? All set for?
Yes.
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 Okay. So I think my first question, I'm going to direct it to Nami. So I'm sorry, to Kathy. So can you tell us a little bit about? I mean, and both of you can always feel free to chip in, whenever. So can you tell us a little bit about your line of work and the children that visit your center, and what are the areas that you work with, Nami? If you can help us.
So we basically practice as a multidisciplinary setup at TheraPlay. So we are a team of physiotherapists, occupational therapists, speech therapists, psychologists, and special educators, along with a visiting art-based therapist and a dance and movement therapist who comes in. So basically, our goal with children is to help them reach their maximum potential and to empower the parents and the kids wherever possible to integrate themselves into society to be able to perform better on an everyday basis. The kind of kids that we'll end up catering to are those with developmental delays, cerebral palsy, autism, ADHD, learning disabilities, sensory integration and processing disorders, genetic problems leading to syndromes. So this is basically the kind of crowd that we work with. We are also closely associated with schools. So in the sense, we don't have like a link up or a tie up per se with any school, but whenever the kids come in from any school, we ensure that we're giving the school or the teacher feedback, and we provide the school and the teacher per se even with strategies, because the goal is just not to have the child do well in your session. The child needs to do well in every place that the child is a part of, be it school, be it a class, be it a home environment, a social setup, anything. So this is basically the kind of crowd that we work with.
So what you're saying is that you integrate it all, like you integrate all the areas.
Yes. So a child may just not need PT or OT or speech. And because we are all under one roof, it becomes very easy to communicate with the other person. So your goals basically work in unison, you know what is happening. And since everyone works on a similar line, similar goal, we are more likely to achieve them. And thus the child is able to perform better.
Okay, all right. So I think it's nice that there's this integration, and then the parent does not have to run two different centers, which I think a lot of schools also nowadays are trying to integrate within their curriculum, within the setup, where they actually have all the areas working together, so that the parent has one place to go to.
Right.
Okay, so this one's for Kathy. You own the setup at TheraPlay, and so how has this current unique pandemic situation that we are in impacted you, one as a professional, and we would also like to know as an owner of an organization that works with children?
Right. So it definitely was a surprising hit. Like, for us to adapt to it, it took us a long time to get ourselves together. We first thought it was something that's going to be there for like a month or so, and we'll be back on our feet. So the planning was like we shut before the lockdown, actually, because we wanted to take care that the kids are safe and things like that. But as and how things started spiraling out, we realized that it's not something that we're looking at for short term. So we had to come up with strategies to help our parents and ourselves with it. So we decided to go online, and doing that, it also was going to help us financially, but we made sure that we didn't charge them the entire amount, and we were charging it at 50%. So even the parents who are suffering from this financially don't go through that hit. So it was like kind of a symbiosis, kind of a place where they were helped out and we were helped out at the same time, and the kids got that continued help.
Yeah, I was saying a lot of people who are working with children now are trying this approach where we do a 50-50, where we understand therapy is essential, and I think giving up on that income for the better of the child.
Yes.
You
don't want your parent to be choosing between us, right? Like they understand that this is essential, but when they're listing out their priorities, it should not hit them that badly that they don't feel like continuing it, So that was something that we really consciously took into our stride, that we needed to do something where parents felt that, okay, fair enough, and we can do this, So we were taking the sessions for 1 hour, but we were still charging 50%. Yeah.
Okay. So, I've realized that through all the sessions that I have been attending, we've been conducting, we realized that all professionals have been talking about this, us being ready to brace ourselves for this mental health crisis that's going to happen. It's currently happening, and this is going to carry forward. It's not just going to end with a vaccine or with the pandemic. So, in this post-pandemic world, so Nami, how would this play out for adults and for children, as well as you being a new mom, how do you think this would play out, as a parent as well as a therapist? I think for you, you're on both sides of it, a new mom, and yes, how do you think this mental health crisis would play out?
So my entire perspective towards this changed on the 11th of March when Inaya came in, because that's clearly when the pandemic started and my new role also started. As a therapist, honestly, it is I'm not saying it's very easy, but it's easier said than done. Okay, a parent should do this, a parent should do that. And when they come back to you in the session, why didn't they meet the expectation? But when you're a parent, you realize every day is a brand new day, and nothing goes as per plan, because the kid is not a robot. The kid is not going to function the way you want them to function. They have their mind of their own, and you want them to have their own independence. So things change. So things just don't go as it is. Coming back to mental health, this is something that I don't think anyone fathomed is going to happen. Okay, and it's going to last this long is something nobody, not even I think the person who is developing the vaccine has thought of it. So this has impacted children. On one hand, is altogether another story. As adults, I think we are finding it very hard to cope up. We have a complete understanding as to why this is happening, what are the precautions we need to take, why we need to wear masks, why we can't step out, why the social distancing. But I think we are still finding it very, very hard to cope with it. Like every day, I'm sure everyone is having breakdowns, meltdowns in some way or the other. It may not be like you're sitting and crying, but you're having meltdowns, having to do all the household work, having to work from home. Everything has changed. So if this is so hard on us, just imagine what it is for a child. A kid has literally been uprooted out of his routine. He used to go to school, he used to go down to play, he met his friends. The kid used to run in the park, play in the park. There were so many things. Everything is just gone. This child has to adapt to a new way of learning, sitting in front of a screen, which at one point the parent said, you're not supposed to be in front of a screen. And now the parent is like, okay, you know what? Now sit. Now I need you to look at the screen and concentrate. So a child has to adapt to a new way of learning. A child has to adapt to a parent being in the house, but still not being available for the child because the parent is involved in household chores, is involved in work from home. Like there are multiple facets to this entire thing. And then take into account a child with any kind of difficulty in life skills. Right, as simple as being able to pay attention in a classroom setup. So in a classroom setup, if we had a child who had difficulties, with paying attention, the teacher exactly knew, okay, the teacher would probably get the kid ahead or would tweak the way she talks to him or address him. In a virtual setup with multiple tiny boxes in front of the teacher's, face on that screen, it is extremely hard. And at some point, a child's learning opportunity is being taken away. And altogether, at the other end, there's a child who has difficulty moving, walking, sitting up. So these, not only the child, the parent here is facing difficulty because you need your muscles to work for them to function and for you to achieve your milestones, which is something in coordination with the therapist was happening, which is completely gone off. So I think it is impacting adults, children, and more so children with any kind of life skill difficulty.
Yeah, I'm sure it's like this profound thing that I think a lot of children who you have not been able to work with during with online sessions, I think you're going to have to really then prepare for such a drastic. I think we went forward with therapy, and now it's going to start going backward. All the progress that children have made, that you have made as a therapist with a child, I think you're going to have to start maybe sometimes even from scratch when they are back, if they have not been able to take online sessions. So somewhere I think all the work that has been put in would probably have to be done all over again once we are back. And I think this coming from a new mom and we being therapists in some form or the other, still are theoretically or practically equipped with some kind of scenarios that we can alter for our children, but with parents who do not have a background for this, I'm sure it must be really hard, like you said. So all right, and with regards to therapist health, now I think when we're on the screen at this point in time, just like when we were at work, we would be a therapist in the session, but the moment the session ends and you're back home, you are also someone who is in the same pandemic world. Right. So, I'm saying that how about the implications for therapists? So I think maybe Kathy can, yeah.
So it's changed for us too. We are doing things which we didn't do before in our house itself, right? Let's start from there. And we also, we are doing online sessions, definitely. But, the control that you had in your own setup, that control has been taken away from you. And, you're dependent on somebody else to do something what you did, which came very natural to you. So, I mean, you have to adapt and inculcate a lot of patience. We as therapists are always known for our patience, like all our parents, like how patient you are with my child. I can never be this patient, but trust me, online has taught us to be more patient, because one is you have zero control, second is that you're dependent on somebody, third is the internet, right? Sometimes you have struggling to give you the best view, so they're constantly moving you, so you have to take all that visual overload. So there are times when we need to shut down after one session, because it had been so visually overloading for us, because we were constantly going from here to there, and there are internet which gives you lags, we can't follow what's happening. So there is a lot that we had to adapt, and we also had to get more technically savvy, which we were not needed to be otherwise. So there was a lot of adaptation that we also needed to take in place.
I think it's a test on everyone's frustration, like how much can we tolerate?
Yeah. So like when you are a therapist at the center, you are just doing that, right? When you are a person at home, you still have to be the person who helps your child with the studies, because he's also doing his online, so it's like you're multifaceting, and because you're physically there, everybody thinks that you can help them out. They don't understand sometimes that you have a session going and you cannot move out of it. So there's so much that happens, like you have to really prepare yourself for the session. It's not something that comes fluently like how it would be in therapy. Yeah.
So I think what you're trying to say is there's preparatory time, there is session time, there is post-session, I think breathing in, taking it in time, and then your own children at home, or family.
Like to add is like now we've actually learned everyone's rooms, because we know exactly what's there in each and every child's house. So the next session we know what we want to do with what's around, so we've actually made like a mind map of each and every child's houses and what kind of toys do they have.
So it's been said time and again that and I'm sure you also follow it, that therapists need supervision and therapy too.
Yes.
It's
I would like to inform you that we've been doing that. So we have been going into each other's sessions, one, to learn from another person, and second, just to see what's happening and if we can help them out with that, So
of course. Like an additional therapist, even online, as well as seeking therapy or supervision from another senior professional. And it's been said time and again. I mean, I do it. I take supervision sessions from my seniors.
For sure. So we have been doing more meetings. Like, so in therapy, we always wanted to have those meetings where we can discuss and, like bounce ideas. But we were so overloaded with work, we never ended up doing that. With this, we've been so regular with our meetings. Like we have it at least once a week, more twice a week, where we are discussing what difficulties we are having with the kids. We are coming up with solutions and things like that. And we've also come up with new ideas to work with children, which we wouldn't have done otherwise. We didn't have time for that. So
that's true.
Therapy is such a hands-on thing for us. Like you need to keep your hand on the child to know whether that muscle is working. You need to be there. And I think this shift, this adaptation has been drastic. And more than anything, what one benefit which I strongly feel has come from online, which probably was one tiny, missing piece of the puzzle when we were taking physical sessions, was you're actually in the household setup of the child. A lot of times a parent is with you in the session saying that this child is following all your instructions, whereas at home the child doesn't listen to me. But here you are in the actual setup where this is a problem, and you can work in that very setup, and you can empower the parent to come up with ideas for themselves over time.
Yeah.
So
I think it's more real world therapy now. It's like it's more real world. Even though it's virtual, it's still more real in context of their scenario.
Yes.
I'll just like to add, so there are many times when we have these children and the parents come and tell us, he does this at home, he does that at home, and we don't seem to see that happening, right, in that 45 1-hour session. Now, since we are at home, there is a lot of that we get it, like we are seeing them in the real life, right? How do they function, what's happening in the house, how everybody's responding to them. So there's a lot that's going on. Yes.
So I think moving on, Kathy, I'm sure in the whole transition from when you were doing physical sessions at your center to when the whole pandemic struck and your shut sessions, what is it? How has this pandemic impacted the children you were already working with? Like we were speaking earlier that we might have, for a lot of children, have to go back and restart with work. But how do you think it has impacted them at home?
So there, as usual, there has been a variety of this thing that we've got. Like some kids are doing way better than they were doing because they've got the attention from their parents, they've got hands-on from their parents, and parents have actually been able to make that bond with them, which they were not able to do because of their long working hours. So that's the positive bit of it. So some of our kids have really bloomed, I would say. Then there are certain kids who didn't have that much difficulty, but this pandemic has really hit them hard. It's really hit them hard on their visual system. It's really hit them hard on their mental health. And we've seen these children kind of go back a little. So it's been different for each and every child, like each child has responded to this as we also have as individual, and we've tried to understand the entire thing about each and every child, how they've taken it, how their families taken it. Unfortunately, we've also had families who suffered from this, right? So the entire scenario changes, like what expectations they have from the child, from the family changes. So it's been like a dynamic situation. I wouldn't say things were the way it is. Like, generally there's so much that is same, you have so much structure going on. There are that go up and down, but they're not big changes. But this pandemic has brought about like big changes in everybody's household, So I mean, it's really pulled on to the child's flexibility and his ability to adapt. So some kids of ours have found it difficult, but some kids of ours are also doing amazingly well. So it's been different for everybody. Yeah.
I think Nami wanted to add something.
So basically, what has landed up happening is this has given, more than anything, it has empowered parents, is what I feel. It has empowered a parent to, like they don't, like earlier in sessions, the parent would call you up, okay, I'm facing this difficulty, what do I do? Now, because they are in the session constantly, they are the ones actually being our hands, okay? They are being our hands doing everything. We are instructing, but they are being the hands. So they have more knowledge, they have more idea how to go about a particular situation or a particular meltdown, how to deal with it way better than what they did earlier. So that's another positive that has come out of the entire situation.
Yeah, and there are instances where when you're taking a session and you have an idea in mind and you're putting across to the parent, and the parent understands it differently and they do it differently, so many times it's a better idea, because now they've got the hang of what's happening in the therapy session, and so they are sometimes able to adapt it to the child's level and do it much better. So
and they can suggest what is working for their kid, because they are doing it not just at that point, probably at another time during play, they're trying to incorporate something of what you taught, and they can come back to you and tell, what, this works, so can we try this in the next session? Like a parent input is way more than earlier. Can't hear you.
You're mute, Dani.
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was saying that the collaboration has increased a lot actually, you know, with parents being a part of these sessions. And it's nice how you've also observed that these a little tip or a little thing that a parent can say, and I'm sure they must be feeling so empowered to know that what they tried worked.
Totally.
Absolutely. And that's why I always love to give them that opportunity to think, you know, because that tells them that they can do it too, you know.
Correct.
They have that ability. They just need a guiding hand, and that's why we come into place.
I think also the likelihood of them then repeating the session throughout the week would
We do that.
happen
Yes.
much more than
Yes.
I think if I feel empowered that, oh my God, I can work with my child so much better, I think I would do one practice session at home, even if the therapist is not available.
Yeah, so
True.
what you said is precisely true, you know, because when they come to the therapy session, they see us doing it and they don't feel confident enough to like kind of copy what we did in the session at home. But when they're doing an online session, they are the one who've done it, right? They just got the instructions. So it's very easy for them to copy it out on another time of day, you know. So we've got people doing a lot more home program than what it was before. Yeah.
And here it is not just a parent who can be involved in the session. The grandparent can take the session if the parent is involved. An aunt, an elder sibling can help out. Like so many times we want a sibling to come in the session because siblings have, you know, like the siblings don't bond or something. This gives a beautiful opportunity for that, for bonding for everybody.
I think so. You have little buddy therapist also with you now when you work with each child.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think I can move on. So, Kathy, what are the strategies that you came up with, you know, to keep these sessions continuing and to ensure that, you know, therapy is ongoing?
Right. So we've really adapted to the home environment. We've used the most naiviest things to make it more therapeutic. Like we've used bed sheets, we've used chairs, we've used even baskets like laundry baskets and laundry bags and things like that to make it more creative. Another thing that we've done is we've tried to engage the entire family so they feel on board. We've tried to make it simpler because we want to set in goals which could be achieved in this specialized way of therapy. We didn't want to set off goals or set off expectations where parents or the child would get failure and then didn't feel inclined to do it again. So we made sure that, you know, we met with the goals, but at the same time made it accessible, made it possible for them to do it, you know. And we had to take into account each parent's strengths, each parent's weakness, each child's strength, weakness, everything when we are planning a session. Definitely I would say a lot more planning went into a session than it did at the therapy center. Like it was way more difficult for us during this pandemic than it was at the center, because at the center you had the control, right? I mean, it is very easy. We have the equipment, we know exactly what the child likes. If he's having a meltdown, I know and I know each and every therapist know their child so well, they know exactly what to do to get him back, you know. But here, I mean, if he's having a meltdown, I'm not there physically to help him out. And you know how everybody deals with that meltdown is different, so you have to be aware of it, and you need to have that patience to navigate and help the parents also to navigate through those difficult situations. So there was a lot more adaptation that went into it, a lot of planning, you know, interpersonal therapist thinking went into it before we went ahead and did it, you know. So it's
how about logistics, like you know, getting people online, getting them to do the 40-minute, 30-minute?
Yeah, so it we kept the therapy sessions the same timing. We, as I told you, we already made it like 50% of what it was for 3 months, and then finally in June we, like, you know, but still it's not the full amount, right? And the second thing being that we made sure that it was like a gradual process. We did give a trial session, so the parents understood what we said when we said online sessions. For them, they saw when they thought of OT, it was like climbing on structures, swinging from one place to another, using the zip line, crashing. So how would that happen in a home environment? Like, I don't have a swing, you know. The minute you said online, they would be like, I don't have a swing, I don't have this, I don't have that. We were like, don't worry, we will adapt to it. So, you know, bed sheets have become our swings now, you know. So we've adapted to it. We've, like, you know, we use dishes to make like a scooter board. So we've done crazy stuff, you know. And the thing is, the slowly and steadily parents did get on board because they could see that happening. They could see those changes happening. And we've had like an increment over the months. So like April, we did so many, May, we did little more, June, we did a little more. More and more parents are coming on board with it because they've realized that we need to adapt now, right? Yeah.
And more than anything, I think this has also given an opportunity to parents who are not in the city. We had a lot of outstation kids who used to come in during their summer break. So they used to literally they were out of their home environment and they used to come for therapy, and it was expected they go back to their home environment and adapt to whatever was taught.
Okay.
So now this has given parents who are in different parts of the country to reach out to us and to have sessions within their home environment, which is way more integrated, and they can still continue having a break like they used to have a break.
Yeah.
So that was very
yeah, at present also we are taking kids around the world. You know, it's not just the country, we are taking kids around the world. Like wherever our kids are, we are taking online sessions, and this is something that's going to continue after we get back to normal.
And like Nami said, that when they're doing it in Bombay and then going back to another environment and being expected to adapt, now I think they're doing their session in the same environment where they have to adapt.
Exactly.
Yes.
So that gives you also as a therapist so much understanding of their environment, and
Absolutely.
I think empowering for them to know that, oh, I can navigate through my environment. I don't have to come to Bombay and then repeat it in another scenario.
Yeah, because this pandemic is here to stay easy for a year. I don't think it's going anywhere.
So, okay, so now that, I think you mentioned, this is for Kathy again, now that you mentioned online and home-based activity, what is it that a typical online session would look like? How would it look like, a typical session?
So basically, as an OT, we work a lot more on their gross motor skills, fine motor skills, visual perception, with their ADL skills, right? The activities of daily living, how they perform their chores, right from the time they get up to the time they sleep. So all the life skills is what we work on, and being at home obviously gives you a better opportunity of doing that. So our sessions are nothing but play, and they've always been play, right? So when they used to come to TheraPlay also, it was all about play. When we are doing home sessions also, it's all about play. We're using whatever is available in the home environment and making it playful. And we are giving them opportunities to understand that one piece of furniture can be used in a multiple way, right? The same piece of furniture can be like a boat for me today or a mountain for me tomorrow. So you're building upon the child's understanding of play and taking it from there, and at the same time working on the tone, working on the balance, working on the coordination, but it's still at the end of the day play. So we've not gone away from our principle of making it play. It's always been therapy, but through play. So that's the same thing that an online session looks like. So anybody entering the room would feel that there is somebody, but my child is playing. But then the play is directed towards achieving the goals that we set out for that child. So if you're looking at a child who has handwriting difficulties, we see to it that we are, choosing activities which work on his core, which work on his upper extremity strength, which work on his visual perception, eye and coordination, and things like that. So, we just adapting what needs to be done, but in a home environment.
Nami, in terms of physiotherapy?
So in a physiotherapy session, you're basically working more towards the muscle strength. You're working towards building, again, balance. You're building coordination. And you basically want the muscles to work in sync together so that a particular milestone is achieved, be it sitting, be it crawling, be it standing. So here you're using bolsters. You're basically your circular pillows that are there in the house. You can make obstacle courses wherein the child needs to step up, step down with your basic furniture. You're using you can use like a bottle as a dumbbell. You can use like a drinking water bottle. A sipper is used as a dumbbell if the child needs to use for strengthening. You can use you can play tug of war with your dupattas. You can basically you can work on your strength with any household equipment. You can use bags of grain. which again become like, weighted objects. When you want, you can tie that bag of grain and have the child walk around for the day. A school bag on the child works as a weighted object. So you can adapt in more ways than one.
That's yeah. I think what about in terms of the timing? Like, and how would it be a regular normal timing, or have you reduced the timing, increased the timing?
It's a 45-minute session as it used to be in TheraPlay, but we've always been very fluid with the time.
I don't think sessions ever get over before an hour.
You know what? Over at 45, we've had kids like who've taken 2 sessions instead of once because they were doing so well and they were playing with another child and they were doing so well. So you've never cut short a session seeing the time. So the same applies here, you know. So it's very goal directed. If you've not got the goal achieved, the session doesn't end. You know, so as I told you, many a times we end up having meltdowns, and if we've had a meltdown, the session might go on to one and a half hour. You know,
yeah, and at that point, it would be very important to, with online, see, when the meltdown is happening with us in the session, we are the ones being able to control it. But when the meltdown happens with a parent, it is very important to make the parent understand that this is okay. You know, like cut yourself some slack. It's nothing you did in the session which led to the child having a meltdown, you know. So we all have good days, we all have bad days. Maybe you step down the goal so that at least kid achieves something, or maybe you step away from the activity at that point and then come back to it within a short period, so that at least somewhere we are achieving the goal. And give bite-sized activities, you know, so that it's more achievable.
And at the same time, just because you had a meltdown, you can't end the session, because then the child feels that's the best way to get away with it, right? And not to do difficult activities. So
I think the meltdown then becomes a reinforcer that I know if I cry, the session will end.
So we make sure that if the child has a meltdown, he still completes the activity, even if it's not the same that we wanted to, but there is some compliance that ends up happening at the end of the session. So that the child also feels that sense of achievement. It should not be like you're ending at a bad note. That's a golden rule for us.
Yeah, a child has to go home happy.
Yeah, he has to go happy. We never want to send a child crying. That's just undone. And third, he has to feel a sense of achievement. When he goes out of that room, or when he finishes an online session, he should feel that, oh, I couldn't do that before and I can do it now. You know, so
Correct.
that sense of achievement and fulfillment needs to happen for the child also to feel the need to come back for their online session.
So also Nami mentioned one thing where, with the parent and the child establishing the fact that it is okay.
Yeah.
I think that's something that we also need to keep telling ourselves. It is okay.
Yes. Multiple times. We'll end up telling each other, you know, it is okay that this goal wasn't achieved. Maybe the goal wasn't the right one at this point. And I think it's a learning curve for us, understanding the child in an online session, and similarly for a parent. There's always a learning curve. It's not going to happen like magic. Therapy is not magic. It's work.
Yes.
With play.
And I understand that we tell the parent.
Yes, continue.
I was just telling, sure that we tell our parent that maybe I went wrong there. You know, it was not you, not your child. I expected something more than I should have at that point of time. And let me break down the activity. Let me go to step 1 and then go on to step 3, you know. So it's okay to admit your mistake, right? And so that parent feel better.
So I think at this point of time, we all three are letting parents come backstage to understand the fact that we also have to tell ourselves it's okay. We also feel we fail sometimes. And I think this is the back end that parents know. A lot of parents do know. And with this, I think a lot of parents will know now once they listen to what you've been speaking about. Also, one more thing is under normal, under regular circumstances, you would probably just basically ask the child a little bit about their day and then move on to therapy. But in the context of online as well as a pandemic, how much time do you generally spend in this session asking them about how they're doing, how their day is, before moving on to the actual goal?
So it depends upon what age the child is, but most of the time we are readers of body language. You know, we look at the child and we know exactly how his day is going and how he is. And we then know what we should be doing with him, you know, like if we feel, you know, because every time there is online schooling going on, you see that shift in the child because the demand has increased, right? uh, they have to sit for longer hours, they have to do a lot more homework. So you see that shift in the child, and then you know that you need to do things differently than you needed to do during those vacation time. Most of our kids have gone through their vacation in this pandemic, and they've gone through this online schooling too, and you see that shift happening in the child. So definitely each day is different for each child. Whatever they say, more than that, the body language tells us more about what they're feeling and how their day has been, and then we kind of take it forward from there. And we've had little ones who just didn't like. There was a very cute fellow who was having a terrible time during this pandemic. Like, he would throw a fit for the smallest of thing. And like, I went into one of his sessions just to understand what's happening with him, and I realized, he just doesn't understand what's happening, because every single time he's getting a date when things are going to get normal and we will be able to move around. So the first question he asked me is like, are you moving around? Are you meeting your friends? So I'm like, no, I'm not doing that. I'm also staying at home like you are, because he felt this is something that's happening only to me. Everybody is leading a normal life, but my mama is keeping me at home. So what I mean to say is, these kids have gone through so much, they have so much baggage of their own. And one session we decided just to talk to him, just talk to him about what bad has gone to us with this pandemic. Like, what are the things we are unable to do because of that? So his birthday is right in December, and he felt like he wouldn't be able to celebrate his birthday just because of this. So, like, we didn't know when this was going to end. And that kind of it's true, right? We as adults also don't know when this is ending, like when we are going to lead like so-called normal life. So it has affected the kids' mental health. So there are days when, like, I had another kid of mine who's staying away from her home, and it's been like 5 months now, and she was finding it very difficult that day. I could see it from her body language that she's finding it so difficult. Like, it just hit her that day that she's away from her home. Like, she's never spoken about her home before that, but that day everything was about her home. So, I mean, we read the child for that day, and then we go ahead from there. Yeah.
And
I think Nami wants to add something.
The child's intent, the child's motivation is always taken into account. You don't plan so you have a broader goal. So we know the goal is basically set in coordination with the therapist, with the parent, and if the child is old enough, the child is taken into consideration, and his vocal needs about what goal the child wishes to achieve is also taken into account. So every time a session is planned, be it physical and even virtual, the child's intent, the child's motivation as to how the child wants to achieve that goal is tweaked by us. But what activity the child wants to do, the child decides, and then we tweak the activity around so that that particular goal is achieved. Yeah. So the body language of the child, the intent, the motivation, everything is taken into account. It's a child-centric approach. Otherwise, you're not going to achieve anything.
Absolutely.
Also, I think their emotions in the here and now is what you're trying to sum up. The emotion and the motivation in the here and now. Like, I may have been super excited in the morning for a therapy session, but in the evening, yes, I'm not.
Yes, totally.
And or I just saw something on the news that I overheard my parents speak, and now I'm not. I can't deal with the fact that I can't go to the garden now. Because I'm suddenly it's 5 o'clock and I remembered, I could have played in the rain, but now I cannot.
Yes,
so that here and now, I think, is been affecting our children a lot.
Absolutely. And as it is, so little control over what's happening, right?
Yes.
So that's what
I think we have little control over what's happening. For
they have
them,
zero.
The reasoning ability is much lower, and I think they have zero control.
But trust me, I think the kids will adapt way better at the end of this than us.
For sure.
Yes, I think they'll be better adapted and with better emotional quotients when they are our age.
Yeah, definitely.
They've been through so much when they were young. So I think Kathy and Nami have both partially already mentioned, the learning process that therapists had to go through. And there were difficulties adapting to this concept. Any other thoughts that you've not added about how easy or difficult this process has been?
I think technical glitches are massive. I think with the crazy rainstorm that is going on, I think Kathy didn't have electricity for like over 20-25 hours.
Yeah.
So, like, yeah. So not having, so I think the technical aspect is one major thing. And I've had breastfeeding difficulties to run out of a session because my kid is there. So I think I think everyone has adapted in their own ways and had each had their own issues as a therapist depending on your home environment. I don't think you can sum it up to one particular thing.
Yeah, I would just like to add that we at Theraplay are very lucky because we have one group of excited therapists who really want to go out of their way to help, and everybody is been very open about sharing their ideas and perspective, and that helps the other therapists, right? All of us had our anxiety to do this, and just having each other to back us up really helped. Yeah. So it's been a teamwork activity.
Okay.
And Nami, that you were mentioning about the rain and your network issues and having to use the phone network as opposed to the Wi-Fi, and I think there are so many of these things where what if this session stops in the middle of a meltdown? Like, what if we have
it does. Parents have technical issues. Like everyone like us is not we are not technologically savvy, and that way there are parents who also are not. So
also you need to understand, like when we look at a notice session, it's where the child is moving, right? He's not sitting in one place, he's doing activities from one end of a room to another. So the parent has to either adjust the laptop or something in such a way that like we can see the child doing the entire thing, or move with them, so much that goes into it, and they are also figuring it out and we are also figuring it out, with it.
Especially with parents working from home, I think having them around, it's not just they start the class and they leave. They have to be around and work around their own schedule.
For sure.
Which I think is something they were already doing in a way when they were coming to the center.
Yeah.
So that gave the tip that we try to keep the classes at the same timing is probably something that would really help.
For sure. But this is something that we can't do without adult supervision, honestly. Like, unless the kid is big enough to manage his own laptop and a screen, we do need like a parent or a caregiver or a sibling or a father or anybody to be there to help the child do things, and especially see at the setup, we are there when they jump from a height or they do something that is risk taking. If they end up doing that in the session, I mean it's not something we want to do, so we definitely, there are times when you're working with kids who are a little hyperactive and they need that kind of control, so we mostly prefer a parent to be there in the room to help that out, or a caregiver also.
And you need a parent to set up the environment. So the environment is what is going to make the activity happen. So you need a caregiver or a parent to set up the environment the way you're instructing them, and then you give the child the leeway to do the activity the way they feel is right. But the environment set up, we need the help.
Yeah, and again, the sessions tend to be a lot more fluid, as Nami rightly put it, like because we go with the child's thought process and the child's ideas. So there are many times which we would need more stuff than we had planned that we would need. So obviously the parent would need to guide them where could they find those things, So definitely there is something that we need a little more input from the parents during the sessions. Yeah.
Also, if I may add, I think the reassurance of the real world, I think because they're seeing their therapist on a screen, and then the reassurance that the person is next to them, holding them, someone's touching them and giving that assurance that this is the real world, and that is visual. But, with the younger children, especially that distinction between virtual and real, I think only when there's someone right next to them, touching them and assuring them that this is reality, I think that's also very essential for parents to be around. So I think in an overall, after you've started these online sessions and have been doing it, any quick pointer tips for therapists, like psychotherapists, OT, PT, everything?
Firstly, I think we may need to realign our goals versus what was happening in a face-to-face session, because we are in a different world. So I think realigning your goals, having smaller expectations to start with, and telling the parent that it's okay to have smaller expectations and making them understand the same too. Providing bite-sized activities, smaller activities, break down the activity just not for the child, but even for the parent, because this is something new that's even for a parent. uh, it's okay to let the parent know that the activity is not going to happen the way was planned, and a little tweak and a change here and there is absolutely fine. That happens in our sessions too. It happens with you too. And Kathy can continue.
Yeah. So you need to really be aware of the parent's mental state, the child's mental state, the requirement, and the where they are, right? I mean, the space that they are in. So that there might be like not everybody has that extra room where they can work in. There might be other people in the same room doing things. So you have to be adaptable, right? You can't there is a lot more that is expected out of you than it would have been otherwise. So you need to be a little more flexible than it would have been otherwise. And also I would say is a lot more patience. Definitely, because we as therapists want our goals achieved. We feel that if we've not done what we set out for, we've not done a good job, and that's not right. But then sometimes you need to understand you're doing the best you can, right? It's okay to have those sessions where it didn't work. That happens in the setup also, that some sessions didn't go the way that you wanted it to go, and you didn't get the goals achieved the way you wanted it to, and it's absolutely fine. That's how it is. But see where you went wrong. Do the assessment. Was it the activity that you chose? Was it that the child was disinterested? Was it that it was too difficult to be achieved in that environment? So go back to the drawing board, figure out what needed to be changed, and bring about that change, because everything is achievable. You just need to figure out what was wrong.
We just need the just right activity, like the just right time. Sometimes you expect too much, or sometimes you expect like something happened too easily. Yeah. So you need to know when to step up. At the same time, you need to know when to step down.
Yeah.
So, and maybe if I could add, just actually from all that you're saying, maybe having goals and activities, and then also having backup goals and activities, just in case, the first two.
That's always there. So we, like if the child has had a difficult day and he decides that today I just want to sit down, I don't want to do any physical activity, then we have to have a plethora of online stuff available for them to do, like visual perception stuff that could be available. So we don't miss out on working on the goals, but at the same time work on them, right? So that flexibility definitely needs to be there.
So I think we have, sorry to interrupt, but I think we have about 5 minutes left. So maybe we'll try and wrap up our basic questions so we can also take the audience questions. So yeah, Nami, continue. We have 5 minutes.
So one thing as a therapist, you can probably pre-plan with the parent about what is available in the household, so that in terms of fine motor, in terms of like gross motor equipment, maybe the parent can just do a video call of the entire household, so you understand what equipment you can use in a session. So it's easier to plan, and at that moment the parent is not running around to get equipment. Yes, there's a possibility the parent will still, if you've tweaked it, but at least more or less everything is in place.
And then maybe always adding on, like, the child picks up something instead of something else, and maybe just add on.
Yes.
Instead of saying, okay, maybe we'll not work with this today, I think we can work with that too. Why put that away and start something? We could.
Because the child's motivation gets the goal achieved more than anything else, So you as therapists, if you can tweak your goals, you will definitely get the goal achieved with what they have selected.
And any quick pointers for parents on considerations?
For a parent, I think the first thing that they can help plan is try to have some kind of routine in place. I know a routine for everything is not possible because your only routine is disrupted. But maybe for like a specific time of the day, maybe the morning routine or a nap time routine or a night routine, have some routine. If you can have visual charts put up, which will help with a routine. You need to have some kind of time aside wherein you're spending with the child with some kind of play that you are involved in. Ensure that the child is getting breaks and is getting rest, and don't put the child in back to back online classes in school. That doesn't help. You're overloading the child visually, and at the end of the day, you're like, my child is sitting in the house but still not able to do. And cut yourself slack. I think this is what I would feel.
Another thing that I think each and every parent need to remember is physical activities are very, very essential. Like movement is what helps us learn, and that's something which we are forgetting, and make sure that you have enough time cut off for the child to have physical play, where they see there is no garden, but you can make a garden out of your house. You need to give them that break where they get to play physical activities. Games like cricket and football can be played, but with tweaks for sure, keeping in mind everything that's around, but they need to have those physical play because that's what helps them learn. So giving them enough movement breaks help them pay attention better. You can't just expect them to sit in front of the screen and expect them to have the attention the way you want it. For that, they need to have those movement breaks. So make sure that you're when you're making that schedule, you're incorporating a lot of physical play into it.
There's a
I think
saying
taking
which
from
we
no,
at
no, sorry.
Theraplay, there's a saying at Theraplay which we totally believe in: a still bum is equal to a still mind. So I think movement is key to learning.
Well, I also, taking from your movement and the fact that the child needs to move and all, a lot of parents come up with, oh, but they don't sit in the session. On the positive side of it, it's okay that they're moving. Very honestly, that it's okay if they're not sitting through a session. They're achieving the goal of movement. So that's also a goal. And most often it's sidelined. It's not because we have fixed therapy goals. A lot of times it's difficult for parents to understand that movement can be converted into a goal. Like, for example, if the child is moving, probably you could tell the child, do one thing, go run to the other room, get something and come back.
Yeah.
Which still means they get to move, and your goal is also fulfilled because they will come back. And also, I was speaking with an eye specialist and she told me that, what, if a child is fidgety and moving during a screen session, it's actually good because they're moving their eyes away from the screen.
Yeah.
So in a way, they're not staring at the screen that much. Encourage the movement. It's okay, push them out of the screen and tell them to go get something.
They need to move out.
So a lot of parents did send us, even when they were sending us questions that, what do we do? My child doesn't listen for a session.
Yeah.
So
so what you said is so true, and I know all schools have like a 40-minute session and a 10-minute break between two sessions. Make sure in that 10-minute break that the child is still not sitting in front of the screen. He is doing something which is going to help him concentrate for the next 40 minutes. Don't let him move out of his space. Let him move around, and that's going to help him.
Maybe go get the books for the next set. Maybe all the books cannot be kept. Like, don't keep all the books next to the screen all the time. For the next session, have the books kept in the other room. The kid needs to go, pick up some weight, come back. And that gives your body the awareness, what, I'm ready again.
Yeah. And a simple thing like hydration. We forget how important it is for our brain. So make sure that the child is well hydrated, during this online session.
I think sometimes it's important to tell the parent also, please go and have a glass of water.
Yeah, absolutely. And, what we also need to know is everybody learns differently. So we have a lot of children who might not look into the screen, but they're still listening. And you need to be okay about that, right? They don't need to stare at the screen to understand what's happening. They are better off not looking at it because they can only work one sensory system at a time. So there are many times kids look away, but they're still listening to what's happening, and that's fine. As long as they are learning, it doesn't matter whether they're looking.
I think considering both of you are very involved in sensory integration, I think that's one thing that besides therapists and I think therapists already follow sensory based work, but I think for other people who take sessions online, like maybe school teachers who are not trained in therapy, or coaches and all, could also then remember the whole listening, looking, and doing moving, listening and looking child.
Yes. So that's something
integrate in our
remind our parents, like it's okay if they don't look into the screen. They just need to respond to us, and we know that they're listening to us. They don't need to keep coming back and looking at us. So we've had times when we've actually switched off the our video, so we could see the child, but the child could not see us, because there are certain kids who get too overloaded with the screen, and we didn't want that to happen, the younger ones. So we need to see the child because we need to see how they're moving, but the child does not need to see us. It's absolutely fine. And the thing is, you need to adapt to all these things. That's how it becomes more functional.
A session, a therapy time screen exposure is very minimal per se, because you're not expecting the child to sit in front of you and stare at you. You need the child to listen, move, listen, move, come back, understand.
Yeah. Most of the time they are across the room, and we're talking to them. So they are actually not looking into us. Maybe like the start 2 minutes when we're saying hi, bye, things like that, what's happening, what you want to play, when we're planning a game together, that's about it, but it's not something like we need to do. We can do it without the video also.
So I think we are almost done with our questions. Maybe we can look through some of the audience questions. I think I'll just go through some of the questions that have been sent to us. We got a lot of response over email. We got a lot of responses over WhatsApp. So people found the number also. I mean, that was amazing that they went to the extent of finding the number and sending us messages on WhatsApp. And I think I'll just scroll through because we're going live on a couple of locations. So I'll just, scroll through some of the questions that we've received in terms of what parents have been asking. So yeah, one question just connected to a few things that you already mentioned is my child does not sit in class, so how do I work on hyperactivity or in sometimes anxiety of the class or of the situation around, which is why they don't come to class?
Right. So when you realize there is anxiety, that means the child has certain apprehensions, right? That's the reason why they have that anxiety. It can be sensory related. It can be something that they feel as a personality. So putting expectation when there is anxiety is the first mistake that you make, right? So when there is anxiety, make sure that you're making lower expectations. You are making the child feel confident in what they are able to do, and then move it about, so if a child is anxious, not looking into the screen, not answering, don't force him to answer, because that doesn't help at all. You can devise with other ways of answering. Maybe he can answer in the chat box and not give a verbal answer, because he might be more comfortable answering there than telling the answer to the teacher. So adapt to what the child can do to reduce the anxiety. Don't put on demand, because that increases the anxiety, is what I would get.
Validate their concerns. That would be first. Let them know that it's okay that they're feeling that way, and tell them that there are, times when even you feel that way. Validation of a concern takes away half the anxiety, that I'm not the only one feeling this.
Absolutely.
I think also giving them just that paper, because this one session I just tried giving the child a paper, and of course it was not a therapy session, it was an art session. But I was like, you know what, let's not do the art for today. Give me a paper and why don't you draw what you're feeling? And the child drew this huge corona monster and how angry I am with this corona monster and how I need to, I just need to. And the fact that the parents said, is it fine that my child is so angry? I said, yes, feeling angry is fine. Acting that out on a paper is also fine, but if he thinks he needs to act it out by fighting or punching something, maybe that's what you need to work on. But if the child says that I'm so angry on this paper and I'm going to punch a pillow or something like that, it's absolutely fine.
And I think accepting and validating and realizing your emotions, having insight of your emotions, I think is half the battle won to dealing with it.
Yes. And so I think just giving him that one paper was enough for him to draw a big green monster, and
just one thing I would like to add is when somebody has anxiety, what they lack is the control. They feel that they don't have control over anything, and that's why they feel so anxious. So make sure that you're giving them some control, and you will see the anxiety go away.
And hyperactivity, I think that's been one of the questions coming from a lot of parents with children who need assistance for hyperactivity.
Yeah. So again, it's a very broad term, and it requires the right kind of assessment to understand why the hyperactivity is there, because it happens for various reasons in all the children, right? But as we already put in, movement really helps. Make sure that they're getting enough movement breaks. That will definitely help the hyperactivity. Anything else you'd like to add, Nami?
Movement breaks, definitely. Maybe having the child do a couple of wall push-ups in the middle in the break time sessions can be one thing. Maybe an animal walk, a crawl, maybe picking up books from one end of the room, coming back and getting the other books. Going and filling his own water bottle and coming back can be something like that. Some kids may benefit if you just have one or two books or a little bag with some weight on their lap to help them realize where they are in space. And the right kind of posture. A kid cannot be lying on the floor in any way possible and attending an online. I'm talking about online class in the sense wherein there is an expectation of a sit-down activity. and sitting tolerance of each child varies.
Yeah.
And it's going to be gradually built up, because these are kids who are, and the kids who have a visual overload already, who have visual sensitivity, a screen is a visual overload already. So they are not the ones who are going to be able to sit still and, be there. So giving that movement break, giving some way to make them aware where they are in space, the correct posture, the correct chair, if you can provide, will really help.
Yeah, another thing I would like to add is, each child that has hyperactivity doesn't mean there are some who do well with movement, but there are some who have a lot of sensitivities because of which they are hyperactive. So just having a quiet corner helps, because that shuts down every sensory input coming in, and that helps them calm down. So having them have a quiet corner, or like a tent kind of a thing, or just like putting a bed sheet on the bed and having them be there is enough to reduce the hyperactivity. So every time there is hyperactivity, movement is one thing, but sometimes just shutting down all the sensory input that the child is getting also helps.
Also, I think rewards for like small goals, like, okay, let's try sitting for 5 minutes and then 6 minutes and then 10 minutes. I think giving them those rewards would also,
making them understand that they could do it, right? I mean, it wasn't that difficult. They could manage to do through this, and sometimes it can be just that what's happening, many kids have auditory processing difficulties, so they are not processing what's happening on the screen, and they could do that in the class, but through the screen they couldn't do it. So that's why they're more fidgety than they were before, so you need to understand what's changed, why my child is more hyperactive now than he was before. So that will give you an understanding of what's happening, and that's how you adapt.
One thing for rewards, sorry.
No, continue, please.
One thing for rewards, do not use food and sugary treats as a reward. and another thing for hyperactivity, sometimes you need to see what probably the kid has eaten for breakfast right before sitting down, which can really play on the hyperactivity too. Increased sugar can lead to hyperactivity. So maybe having a right balanced diet also would really help with the hyperactivity.
I think something simple like stars. I think paper stars. There's no monetary input in it. There is no sugar food based input in it. It's just simple stars, and kids love stars. I mean, the stars have an ability to get them to do some amazing things, So
sometimes we also use cognitive strategies where we just designate certain colors to certain way your body needs to be. Your body needs to be ready to learn. So it can be a simple thing like designating a color, and the minute you show them that color, they need to know that they need to be ready to learn, and they can't be moving around, right? And that has helped a lot of kids. So using a visual feedback of how they need to be, that helps. Yeah.
You can just basically have like an engine system. That is, red means your body is too hyperactive, green means your body is ready to work, and blue means your body is too low. So you can just show the color, and the kid will have, and this happens over a period of time. It's not going to happen over one day, but basically at least the kid is able to help himself and realize where he or she is, and able to come back to the task.
Absolutely.
So one of the bigger questions and the most common question that keeps occurring everywhere, and I'm sure you're already guessing what it is screen time. I think that was one common question across all platforms.
Okay, so just because we say online school and online sessions, it does not mean the same. Like, as I already told you, there have been many times when we shut the video off. Like, our screen time is bare minimal compared to like a screen time that happens in school. What happens with screen time is you reduce the amount of blinks that you make, and that's what is leading to that overload, right? So make sure that the child is taking adequate breaks, is blinking enough, and that's going to help him through the screen time.
And a lot of people
I
are
didn't
asking.
Get your last point, I think. Yeah, Nami, Kathy's last point.
I didn't get that.
Kathy's last point? I didn't get your last point, Kathy.
So they're not blinking enough?
Yeah.
Make sure that the child is blinking enough. He's not staring at the screen. He takes that break away from the screen, and that's what's going to help. So definitely our kids who have sensory visual overload through the screen have shown us certain symptoms which they didn't show us before, but there are certain set of activities which can help them overcome that overload. Yeah, but they are all physical based, right? So movement breaks again is something that's going to help with the screen time.
Nami, I think you wanted to add something.
Yes, a lot of parents keep telling us that the WHO is saying that you shouldn't have more than 1 hour of screen time or something. But WHO has laid these guidelines based on obesity, not taking into consideration the pandemic situation. So I'm not saying that go against WHO. That's not what I'm saying. But a little tweak here and there is fine. So you'd rather have your child sit through a session wherein they're going to benefit in some way or the other rather than sit and watch a Peppa Pig episode for screen time. So I feel you need to choose your battles, same way you need to choose your screen time now.
Yeah, I think the whole entertainment factor of screen time is moving out, because if there's no screen, there's no life skills. So what you would normally do on a ground, and what you would normally do, which was what the original WHO guidelines were, that instead of screen time, go and play.
Yeah.
Eat well, sleep well. That is the entire obesity program that they had, and eat well, sleep well. But now the play is not happening. And if it's happening on a screen, like we conduct a lot of sports sessions on a screen, but the screen is 3 feet away. And it's an interactive screen session. We're not watching a show. You are looking and doing it. And most often the screen would be off. Like you rightfully said, in a 40-45 minute session, I think you keep the screen off quite a few times. So it isn't actually reaching the 1 hour that was recommended.
Yeah.
So, but yes, of course, the recommendations are essential and are important in terms of eye health and posture. Like moment Nami mentioned posture, the first time I was like, oh my God, I'm not sitting well. But that's what's happening. We don't realize it ourselves that we're not. So I think screen time with add-on factors like posture and eye health is what's the bigger issue as opposed to the actual screen.
Yeah, true. Yeah, you need to be cognizant that they are going to do that online school, right? So make sure that through the day, they are not getting so much of screen time that they do, try to reduce the TV time, try to reduce the iPad time, and more physical play is what we would endorse, make sure that they are doing more hands-on play, more physical play, and that's going to help them through the screen time.
So yes, so now it's moving from entertainment to more life skills and life-based.
Absolutely, true. Them to help in the chores, and we've had kids who are doing a lot more chores than they picked up. I've had a kid who every time we play a game, he wants to play a chore-related game. So it would be like a sweeping game today. Because he's doing all these things and it's so amazing, right? So it's nice. Get them to do more of those, I would say. Yeah.
I think in one of our casual conversations, Nami was talking about how they mix chores with activity. I think you're using the vessel, the big bowl for vessels for propelling around. I think that's what you were telling me once.
Yes. Like, so basically the
board, we've used that as a boat.
Yeah, you use your laundry basket as a ball pool. Your chairs
go around.
Yeah, you basically you adapt, and you'll be surprised. The kids come up with great adaptations.
Yeah.
I think sometimes you just tell them the part of the body that they need to exercise and they will come up with something super cool for it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yes, I think this sums up most of our questions. Is there anything that you would also want to add, because you shot our time by 10 minutes? So, I think one question that came up is how do we prepare? I think that's the last question we'll take, is how do we prepare for going back? Like, after all of this, coming back for a therapist, especially moving back.
So you need to keep all guidelines in place. Our departments have come up with, our councils have come up with guidelines of how you should be doing. Make sure that the sessions are one-on-one. All the checks are happening before the session. You're sanitizing the area and the toys enough before you're getting the next child in. There is no waiting time. We don't want anybody in the waiting area. So they come up only when they are asked to come up. We at Theraplay, we've started functioning since a week now, but there's only one therapist working. We are a team of 23, so we've gone down to one therapist working. We wanted to make sure that it's doable before we go ahead and get one more in, So we're going to go gradually adding one therapist at a time. and then as and how it goes, we're going to move on. Taking good history is also adequately important. Like you need to know if there has been any COVID around, in and around, have the family move around, just all those kind of things before you get them in, because you are risking other kids too, right? It's not just you, it's everybody who's coming in contact. Minimize how many people you have at the clinic. So one person that you have should be doing multiple goals. Like, this is not the time to have the receptionist coming in, because I mean, you will have therapists doing multiple goals, sometimes even doing the sanitization by herself because she doesn't want the cleaner to come in. So you will have to be adaptable of how it is. Minimize how many people you have at the clinic at that point of time is what I would say.
And Nami, if you would like to add therapy wise, how do we gradually move back into face-to-face?
You will have to go stepwise, and I think that particular day when you see the child, you'd have to just you need to start with a reassessment. You need to kind of basically go back, see what goals were achieved, how the pandemic played on the kid, and then tweak your goals with what the current expectations are. You can't think of what was happening 5, 6, 10 months. I don't know when things will finally get better, but yeah. And just maintain a basic checklist so that things are happening fine.
Okay. So I think we've covered all of our questions actually, and short by 15 minutes. But thank you for being with us. And I've had a good time, and given me a lot of insights for what I could do when I do my next sessions. And I think thank you to both of you all, and thank you to the audience that has been very patient and calmly watching, because even though it was like 3 or 4 minutes late that we started, there were people who were calling in and asking, how do I join this? So thank you to everyone, and thank you for all the questions. So yeah, this was amazing. Thank you, Nami, and thank you, Kathy.
Thank you for having us. Yeah, this was great.
Yeah, thank you. Bye-bye. Take care.
Bye-bye.